Welcome to AI After Dark, presented by Out of the Norm AI.
All right, let's get started, folks. So before we jump into the lesson tonight, I just want to welcome you. Welcome back to another session. This is AI After Dark, and I will be your host tonight, Ryan Norman, aka Out of the Norm. And normally my classrooms don't look like this, but I thought, why not do something a little different, maybe a little out of the norm? Because I think there's a lot of people talking about AI, but they're not really, they really don't have any soul in the AI. And I think that's what's missing from AI, is a little bit of soul, right? We talk about alignment and trying to get the AI to do and behave in a way that aligns with our values as a human race. Well, I think the people that are leading that charge are thinking about it from a purely logical, technological, mathematical perspective, and they're leaving a little bit of the soul out. So that's what I'm going to try to do with this channel, at least with this series. And you guys let me know what you think about it. I love the feedback, positive or negative. Matter of fact, I don't think any feedback is negative. It's all good, positive feedback to me. But the goal here is to arm you, raise your wellness, so that we can hopefully come together and use this tool to be more human. But first, we have to learn what it is actually and how it works, at least as much as we know how it works, because there's still a lot we don't know about it. Now, I don't claim to be any whiz kid or genius. I'm just like you. I'm learning new stuff every day. I'm hearing all types of news. But I know that there's an opportunity for us to utilize this in a way that's beneficial for everyone, not just for the few, not just for those that get it, not just those that are technical, and not just those of us that are in those few small communities that are doing a lot of the developing and research. But what about everybody else? So my aim is to talk to you and to connect with you and to be your conduit, your liaison to some of the more highly technical and complex subjects, and hopefully distill it down in a way that we all can get it, and do that in a way that brings empathy and soul to the conversation, because I think that's what's missing. All right. So let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about AI, and this is going to be purely from a beginner's perspective. All right. We're starting with first principles. We're going to break all this down to the nitty gritty, all the way down to the seed. And again, my goal is not to use very technical terms or jargon that's hard for people outside of those communities that are developing this stuff. I want to meet you where you're at, and I want to know what you're thinking about AI. So let's start with the elephant in the room. I know a lot of us are afraid of AI, or at least we're afraid of what AI could be, because a lot of us, most of us, still don't really know what AI is. And we're going to talk about that tonight. But you may be worried about the job insecurity. We hear the layoffs. We hear how difficult it is to get a job these days, especially for my new recent grads that are out there. I have a niece that just graduated not too long ago, a few months ago. Go HU. So I feel and empathize with you that are entering the workforce. I definitely remember when I entered the workforce coming out of undergrad many, many years ago. And it was during a tumultuous time as well. We had just had 9/11. The markets were a little crazy. People were a little unlikely to, or at least a little hesitant to hire. But there's a lot of uncertainty. And not all that different from today. But through the grace of God, I was able to get a position and begin my career. Now, I'm not one of these Gen Xers that speaks to Gen Z and the millennials and Alpha and say that, you know, you guys just need to work harder, because that's just not the case. It is hard out there. It is harder than it was when I was you guys' age. And I acknowledge that. And so that's why I want you all to come into the classroom as well, because hopefully I can drop some nuggets that will help you too. Not just my generation, but the ones that come after me. You may also have heard some privacy concerns with AI. Now, some of you, I think most of us, we don't think too much about privacy concerns. We scroll through that terms of conditions and just click that accept button as quickly as possible so that we can get whatever software or tool or device that gives us some added convenience in our life. And we're willingly offering up our privacy. But I think you'll start to see in the months and years to come that this is a little bit different. This is a little bit different than what happened after 9/11 with the Patriot Act, And this is not to be political. This is not a political channel. I'm neutral, okay? I just want what's best for mankind, what's best for our race, the whole human race, okay? So I don't have a side, I don't have a dog in that fight, but I can recognize a pattern here. And we're going to talk about pattern recognition as it applies to AI tonight. But I do remember a time when things were uncertain and we rushed to get back to certainty at the expense of our privacy. And I think we're on the frontier of that same decision again. Next up, algorithmic bias. Now, first of all, what is an algorithm? An algorithm is simply a set of instructions, okay? It's a set of instructions that we as developers, engineers, scientists, researchers, this is what we give to the computer, to the machine. It's no different than a recipe or directions to point A to point B. But I think we all know what bias is, and there's no need to explain that. But let's talk about and think about just a moment, just to reflect on what algorithmic bias is. So when we think about the instructions that we're giving to these machines, to these systems, we have to ask the question, who is developing these algorithms? Where do these algorithms come from? Are they coming from a diverse and inclusive population? Maybe, maybe not. In my experience, they're not. I'm usually one of the few people that look like me, that have backgrounds like mine, that are in these rooms. And I can tell you all that my voice is not loud enough. But that's also part of why I'm developing and creating this channel, is because I need you guys' help. I need you to know what I know, to amplify my voice, but also to amplify your voice, right? Because there's too many voices out there that are not being heard. And there are too many of us that are impacted by bias. And look, this is not political. This is not about race. This is not about any type of affinity. This is simply about making sure everybody is being heard and everyone is contributing to this transformational technology that we're in the middle of. It's not coming, it is here. And we need as many people from all walks of life to be discussing this. And so I want to help you guys get the awareness and the knowledge and information that you need so that you're aware of what's happening. But ultimately, we're able to go back to our own communities, to our own affinity groups, and be able to lead and amplify those concerns, because it's just not enough right now. And then finally, let's talk about the existential risks, right? This is the doomsday, Terminator, Skynet. And while I personally don't think that that's anywhere near, there is a percentage of a chance, albeit a small percentage of a chance, that maybe there is an extinction event. Okay. When you have the great minds like Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI himself, warning of these concerns, who am I to ignore that? Who am I to think that progress and acceleration is all that matters? So I think there is some concern there. And again, my attempt with this channel is to raise the awareness of those concerns so that we can be better prepared, both individually and as a group collectively, so that we're able to hopefully mitigate some of those risks. All right, so as I said in the intro, I'm Norm, Brian Norman to be exact, and this is my channel, Out of the Norm AI. And you're in a class session tonight. This is AI After Dark. But I want you to know during the daytime that I am actually a technologist. Now, I wear many different hats depending on the projects that I'm working on, whether that be in corporate America, my own freelance projects. Sometimes I'm a analyst. Sometimes I'm a data scientist. Sometimes I'm a data engineer. Sometimes I'm a manager. Sometimes I'm a VP. It varies. But I can tell you the theme that spreads across all of the activities that I do from a professional level, they're all related to data. And we're going to see and learn how important data is to AI in just a moment. But what I've learned over the couple of decades that I've been in the industry is that data rules everything around me. Okay? Dream, get the money. And it's very important for all of us to know what data is, know what our data is, know where our data is, and extremely important to know how to protect our data. All right. But specifically to AI and the systems and ecosystem that AI is developed in, data is one of the major life sources. Okay. So we're going to be talking about that. And a new vocation of mine, fairly new, recently, within the last decade or so, I started moonlighting as an educator, partnering with various universities, freelancing, consulting, and just ultimately helping working professionals first learn about data and analytics, and then eventually moved on to machine learning and now artificial intelligence as a whole. And by the way, we in the field, we consider machine learning AI as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But something about education that I want to speak to just a moment, and I want to speak to my educators out there because I think it's important that I give you all some recognition. I was speaking with a former colleague of mine, and we were talking about my aspirations and how important education is to me. And one of the things that he said, because he's from the East, and he said in the East, the educator is held in very high esteem, almost second to the creator, but held with very high reverence and is a very noble profession. And growing up, I was raised during the summers by my grandmothers, both on my maternal and paternal side. You know how it is. Mom and dad drop you off at grandma and grandpa's at the during the summer vacation. But both of my grandmothers were educators. God rest their souls. But they instilled in me at a very early age how important education is or was. And I always looked up to them as the first mentors I had, other than my parents, of course, but outside of my parents, my grandmothers, the educating and teaching positions that they held, I held them in very high esteem. And although I did not like it at the time going to school year round, it paid off. Okay. And I just wonder why in the West do we not have this same appreciation for our educators? And why don't we put our money where our mouths are when we express that appreciation? So I just want to take a quick moment to show gratitude to all the educators that are out there. I know that you all are also being impacted by AI. And hopefully if you're an educator and you're watching this, or you know someone that's an educator, let them know that there are ways that we can use this tool to be even better educators, that it's not necessarily a zero-sum game and it's just going to wipe the art of education, the nobility of education out the water. I don't think that that's going to happen at all. In fact, I think we need more educators. And I hope I'm not the only channel that begins to talk about this. I hope that maybe I start to spur some type of excitement or transformation of educators maybe leaving their classrooms and coming online and expanding their reach using tools like AI. Because I think it's extremely important that we educate as many people as possible on this one specific technology because it's so transformational. Okay. So that's a little bit about me. This is an art or a work of passion for me, this channel that you're watching. Again, I'm coming into a new way of expressing myself, a new way of educating, because we know how it is when you're in the corporate space. There's oftentimes the pressures to be like something that maybe you're not naturally. And that's not to speak to any one specific group. That is all of us. I think we all go through that. But I think we're at a point where we can start to take back some of those freedoms, some of that autonomy. And hopefully I spark something in one of you, two of you, a few of you, that makes you start thinking about some ways that you can use this to reach more people, to have more impact. Because that's my ultimate goal, is to make a difference. Okay? One person at a time. All right. All right, so let's talk about what AI actually is. So quickly, let's go over the definition here. Artificial intelligence, which is what the acronym AI stands for. Many of you know that by now, hopefully. But artificial intelligence, it is a field of computer science, and it aims to create systems that are capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, decision making, and perception. All right. Now, that was a bit of a word salad, so let's break it down just a little bit more simple terms. AI is essentially a system that's created to be and think like human beings. Plain and simple, that's what it is. That's the goal, that's the objective of it, all the way down to the neural network, to the perceptron, to everything that's created. And we'll get into those at a later time once we develop our sea legs. But for now, just understand from a high level, that's what AI is. Its goal is to be like us, right? In the image of the creator, right? And I know that may strike a chord to some of us, but that's the attempt. Now, it's done with good nature. I want to give those scientists and researchers the benefit of the doubt that it's done in kind and done in jest to allow us as human beings to be more productive, to rely less on the non-human aspects of our lives, so that we can be more human, so that we can be more creative, that we can do the things that are intrinsically human. That's my hope, at least. Now, maybe I'm naive, but nothing wrong with being idealistic, right? Need a little bit of that. So that's what our AI is, okay? I also want to talk about what else AI is. Two particular types of AI. Now, the narrow AI, and we've had narrow AI for many, many years. We just thought about it as technology, but there's actually AI sprinkled into it. But this is specialized for a specific task, all right? It's something that we do, or we design it in a way that does one thing very well. When you think about your alarm that goes off every single day at the same time, or whatever time you program it, you are designing that system or that application in your phone or whatever device you're using. You are designing it in a way that's very narrow. When you set your alarm, you do not expect your alarm to make your bed for you. Okay? You expect your alarm to do one thing: to wake your butt up. Now, narrow AI is like the one-trick pony, so to speak. Okay? Now, when we go to Gen AI or general AI, it's a whole nother world. Okay? General AI is much broader, okay? And its goal is to be able to handle a multitude of tasks, much like a human can, from all types of different domains and disciplines and specializations. So if you have narrow AI being the one-trick pony, you have general AI being the sort of the Swiss Army knife, okay? Now that's at a high level. Again, we'll get into the details of this as we start developing these tools and learning how to develop them and how they work underneath the hood in future lessons to come. But just understand that that's typically what we have: two types of AI, narrow and general. Narrow AI, again, has been around for many years. General AI, we're getting there, right? And when you hear the term AGI, that's the artificial general intelligence, okay? This is a system that we can put in a situation and it will be able to learn and adapt to anything in that situation. We're not there yet, okay? But the hopes are that, and some of the research and findings are that we will get there at some point. When, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. And anybody that tells you they know, they're not being completely honest with you. Well, maybe they think they're being honest. Now, of course, narrow AI is going to have some limitations just because of how specialized it is. And general AI's huge, immense amounts of potential. Now, I want to relate this to some of the concerns that we all have right now, which is job insecurity, what type of work we'll do in the future. What does it mean once we have general AI? Well, I want you to think about the type of work you do now. Is your work very narrow? Are you a narrow AI? Because if you are, I can tell you right now, you want to shift to being a general human, okay? And being able to adapt and learn and be able to be productive in a various set of circumstances and environments, because that's ultimately how you're going to survive this. And that's why I've always aimed in my career to be very general, not super technical, but a dash of technical, a dash of business, a dash of communication, a dash of all these various domains, because I'm just of the opinion being a mile wide and an inch deep gives you more options. Now, that's not to say that you don't need to specialize in something. I do believe in that. Again, I specialize in something, but within that specialization, I try to go as wide as possible because it gives me more points of perspective. It gives me more data points to learn and train on, and more pattern recognition ability. And that's what we need. Well, that's what we need as humans, but it's also what AI needs. And we'll see that in just a moment. All right. So as I was telling you guys, AI has been around for quite a while, 75 years or so. And depending on how you define it, maybe even longer than that. But even all the way as far back as the 1950s, Alan Turing with his Turing test and John McCarthy at his summer Dartmouth conference, where he coined the term artificial intelligence. Some of the best and brightest minds of the time were already talking about this artificial intelligence. They were already creating proofs of concepts and theorizing about this technology. They just didn't yet have the tools, the technology, the hardware, the resources to really bring to fruition these theories. And then you started to see with cheaper hardware, storage, compute, you started to see some breakthroughs happening in the 90s with IBM, both in the 90s and the early 2000s. Both of those are IBM, Watson and Deep Blue. And even in the early 2000s and the 2010s and in the 2020s. But more specifically, what I want you guys to focus on here is that there's a pattern that you notice here, right? There are these gaps, these ebbs and flows that occurs throughout the evolution of AI. Not all that different from the evolution of human beings, right? We can see that most of AI's impact and growth has happened fairly recently. And when you think about our evolution from a technological standpoint as human beings, that's also been within a small window of our entire existence, right? So there is some similarities there between the evolution of AI and the evolution of human beings. But I think it's important for us to think about, as AI is evolving, how are we evolving? How are you evolving? Because that is going to be the question that determines, do we synergize with this technology? Right now it's a technology. Maybe one day it becomes a species. And what does that look like? Do we reject it? Do we resist? Or do we comply? Or do we accept it and turn lemons into lemonade? I don't know. I think it will happen in my lifetime. But if not, it certainly will in the people, in the loved ones' lives that I have. They will see it. So I think about that. I definitely think about the evolution of not just AI, but humans as well. But we'll talk about this ebb and flow throughout the history, a little bit more in depth in future lessons. But something I want to leave you with is that these dips of AI having breakthroughs and somewhat stalling out, we call those AI summers and AI winters. And an AI summer is pretty much what we're experiencing now, what we've been experiencing since the 2020s or so. And this is when you hear a lot of hype and a lot of discussion and excitement around AI. And that's considered an AI summer. Now, when things start to go cold or start to stall out a little bit, not as many breakthroughs, not as many wow moments, those are AI winters, okay? And some speculate we may be entering an AI winter soon. Again, I don't see that. I think the progress is still happening, albeit not as amazing and surprising as it was a few years ago, but we're still seeing steady improvement and progress. Okay. So let's talk about how AI works. All right. So now we know a little bit about what AI is. We talked about some of the different types of AI. Now, how does it work? And tonight we're not going to be able to break down how AI works at a deep level, but we can at a very high level, a very conceptual level. So let's talk about that. And there are essentially three parts or three phases or steps of an AI system. Okay. Now, the first one is going to be the training phase. This is where AI receives a tremendous amount of data. This data comes from disparate sources, whether that be video, audio, text, social media, streaming. Essentially, if you can think of it as an electronic transmission of any type, that is data, and that is what AI is training on. Now, these data sets can be massive, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these data centers going up. And we'll talk about data centers and the storage and all of those things in later lessons, but just know that data, it is the food of AI. This is how AI survives. This is how AI is able to sustain its ability to live. Data is how AI is able to make the magic, quote unquote magic, that it's able to do. It's all based on the data. So good data in, bad data out. Sorry. Good data in, good data out. Bad data in, bad data out. Excuse me. And once that data has been trained on, or during the training phase, what the AI is actually doing is looking for patterns. It's looking for relatability between different points, bits, in a very complex way. It's doing matrix multiplication. Okay. Now, don't worry, we're not going to jump right into calculus just yet. But at some point, we will stick our toes in and get to that in future lessons. But just understand that it's finding patterns using math, okay, and statistics as well. But it's looking for patterns, and some of the patterns, just to give you an idea, it does a lot of the pattern recognition that we do, because pattern recognition is core to intelligence, whether you're human or non-organic. When we read books, or when we listen to music, or when we watch movies, or anything that we ingest, we look for certain patterns, right? And those patterns help us predict what's next. And that's what AI is doing. AI is studying, ingesting, reviewing tremendous amount of data and inputs. And so by doing that, it's able to find examples from the training set that could be applicable, could be, not necessarily, but with a high level of probability, could be related to that same exact example during the training set that it sees in the production environment or real world. We'll talk more about that as we go, but these are the 3 steps of AI. Train on a bunch of data or review a bunch of information, find patterns in that information, and use those patterns to be able to make predictions on what should come next. If I were to sing a famous song by the Jackson 5, ABC, you guys probably are already thinking about it. ABC, 1, 2, 3, right? Now, the reason you're able to recognize that pattern is because, at least for those of us in my generation and maybe just below my generation, we know the Jackson 5. We've heard Little Michael singing that song. And so we know that after he says ABC, easy as 1, 2, 3, we know that. We can recognize that pattern. So it's ingrained in our training set, in our training model, which is our brain, that we can be able to predict what comes next. When we listen to music today, when we listen to songs, you hear the beat drop. You hear that beat drop, you're already referring or inferring what's going to come next because of you've heard that song so many times. You've trained on a massive data set of lyrics, music, audio tracks. And so you're able to predict what words are going to come at which stanza of the piece of music. So AI is trying to do the exact same thing. Okay. Now let's dig into a little bit of how it works beneath or behind the scenes or underneath the hood. Now, this flow that you're looking at on the screen, we're going to dissect each one of them individually, but just know that this is essentially the life cycle of an AI system or a machine learning model. Now, in our field, we typically don't call these, we don't say AI, we just say machine learning or machine learning model or statistical model. But with all the nomenclature and buzzwords and everything, AI is just now a catch-all for everything, okay? But this is typically what happens when we're training for some type of system that's going to do some type of prediction. And you'll see this very often in the finance world, whether that's predicting loans or predicting not loans, but predicting loan outcomes or loan decisions, predicting whether or not someone will default on that loan, whether someone should get a certain level of finance or monetary finances, or their credit limit, their spending limit. All that's done through a model. That's not done by some human being reviewing your data and making a decision on whether or not to approve you or how much to approve you for. It is done with this type of paradigm here, collecting data, which is, I'll relate it to the human first. We submit an application. That application gets our name, our address, our date of birth, our occupation, our social security number. These are all data points. This is the data collection phase, okay? And in that data collection phase, we have to also think about how much data is needed to inform a good decision. Because when it comes to AI, there's so much data that's needed. Not so much when you as a human being is filling out a credit card or home loan application. But maybe there should be more data collected than just your name, address, gender, background, occupation, credit score, right? Maybe there should be additional data points. And, you know, you have a lot of people talking about the way the credit score system is developed and how it has bias in it, right? Remember, we were talking about algorithmic bias earlier tonight. The bias has been throughout a lot of our work-life streams, okay? So data collection is just that, collecting data, and that is what the AI is doing. It's collecting amounts of data. Now, specifically, the AI is not doing this, you know, or traditionally, the AI is not collecting the data. Human beings, we are collecting the data. We're building systems that are collecting this. And this is what data engineers, data analysts, and to some degree, data scientists do. We'll collect a massive amount of data, we'll structure that data, and put that data in something that's called a database, or maybe a data lake or data warehouse. And to relate that to those of you that are outside of the technical world, I want you to think about data. Again, let's use the analogy of data being food for AI. What we do is we collect a bunch of data or a bunch of food, and then we store it in a refrigerator or a freezer, okay? And hopefully we store that data or that food in the refrigerator in a way that's structured and organized so that we can get the most use out of the storage container, the refrigerator or the freezer, so that when we open up the refrigerator and the freezer, we're able to quickly see, oh, there's my leftover lasagna, or there's, you know, the hot wings that I ordered that I want to heat up, or there's some peanut butter and jelly so I can make a peanut butter and jelly. We do it in a way so that's easily retrievable or easily to recall and use. And data is no different, except for when it's in a database, which is the equivalent of a refrigerator. Okay, the data sits in this database, and the data analyst is going to extract data from that refrigerator, and then they're going to what we call pre-process it. Now, let's stick with our analogy of food. Can any of you guess what pre-processing might be in relation to food? Yeah, some of you may have guessed it right, but pre-processing would be almost like preparing a meal, right? So if data is the food for AI, pre-processing is essentially preparing the food or preparing the data for AI to ingest it, because not all data is ingestible by the AI or by the model that we're using. right? Our AI is picky, okay? It's very picky. It only likes its food a certain way. And so one of the major tasks of a data analyst or a data scientist is to prepare. We are the chefs of the data world in some ways, in many regards, where we're preparing these dishes or these recipes for the AI, right? Whether you're a machine learning engineer, a data analyst, data scientist, these roles are somewhat interchangeable depending on the company you're with or the project you're on. But just know that data pre-processing is that next step after you've collected your data, you went shopping, you went and got your groceries, you now have your groceries in the refrigerator, you're now ready to take your groceries out of the refrigerator and prepare a meal for yourself to ingest. Same workflow here with the AI system. Data gets collected from social media, from text messages, from online, from various locations and sources. It then gets stored in a database or a data warehouse. When we're ready to prepare that data to be fed to a system or to a model, we prepare it. And a lot of this preparation or this pre-processing, we also call it cleaning, data wrangling. But specifically to AI and machine learning, data pre-processing is when we're making the data available and ready in a way that the AI model prefers. Okay. So if the model is a vegetarian model, then we have to pre-process that data in a way that doesn't have any meat, right? And so that's what we're doing with data as well before we feed it into our next step, which is the model. Okay. Now the model architecture, again, I'm trying to keep this very high level. We'll go into each one of these very deeply in future lessons, but we just want to keep a very high level understanding of what's happening behind the scenes here when you put in that prompt into ChatGPT, or how that model is developed for you to be able to use a ChatGPT or Claude, Sonnet, or Gemini, or XAI, excuse me. Sorry, Grok. And so we need to think about what type of model we want or what type of problem we're trying to solve. Now, there are thousands of different models that are out there. Now, the frontier models, and we call these models frontier models because they're the ones that are leading. They're setting the pace. These are the folks, these are the corporations, the ones I just named, your OpenAI, your Google, your Anthropic, your XAI or Twitter, your Elon group, your Metas. These are the leaders, but there are a tremendous amount of models out there. And even that are non-AI or non-large language models, we have models that are just purely statistical, that are just purely math and decision-making models. They're not related to generating any type of feedback. But we'll talk again more about that in future discussions. But just know for right now, you have to select or choose what type of model you're going to be building your system around, right? Once we have our model architecture selected, we're now ready to do the training, right? Now, when you hear the term training in relationship to artificial intelligence or AI, I just always want your mind to jump to training means learning. Okay, this is the machine model or the AI model learning on data. Remember the 3 steps: train on massive data sets. It's going to then look for patterns, and then it's going to make predictions, right? The model training phase, this is where our model looks at all that data that we prepared for it, okay? If we're using the same analogy of the food analogy, right? This is the step where the model is actually looking over the plate and looking at the meal and saying, I'm going to ingest this. I'm going to eat that. I'm going to take this. And oh, by the way, I noticed when you prepare spaghetti for me, you make also meat sauce and you also have some garlic bread. And so I'm finding patterns in this recipe or this data or this plate of food that you've served to me. This is what the AI is essentially doing during the training phase. Now, that's a very overly simplified way of thinking about what's happening here. But again, I'm trying to stay away from the highly technical jargon. And I want to talk about things that are very relatable to us all. And most of us are, or at least know a little bit about food in the kitchen, right? Now, once our model is trained, once it's ingested this information or ingested this food, this data, right, and found these patterns, we then do a step called evaluation, right? And this is no different than an exam or some type of test where we're testing to see how well the model performed in its ability to make predictions, in its ability to learn about the different data sets that we gave it. And then if it evaluated very highly, if it came out with a highly or high amount of accuracy during its prediction phase, we can then deploy the model. Now, model deployment is simply just releasing it to the wild, right? We just recently had a deployment of ChatGPT 5, and there's been some controversy around that. A lot of folks not too happy with it. I think it's a great model. I think it does require some massaging, but it's still a frontier model. It's probably the best that we have in most domains across the board, generally speaking. Maybe not as intelligent or great as Grok, but that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that later when we start talking about comparing different models. But just know that when we talk about model deployment, this is where the model has now gone through its training, right? Like a prize fighter. It's been training for decades, right? Rocky was trained, well, not decades, but it's been training for a few months or maybe even a year or two. And now it's ready to deploy or go to the championship fight, which is putting it in the hands of users and letting users use the tool. Now, that doesn't stop, right? Even though that ends sort of the life cycle of the training of the model, the preparing of the model, once it's deployed, once it's released to the wild and it's given to everyone to use, it still goes through another step of this continuum phase of being continuously improved, where it's gathering new data, real world data, because data is being produced and created every day. So that model has to continuously improve. And it has to go through these steps all over again. Now, remember the 3 phases that we talked about. And what you see here at the bottom of the screen, model, fit, predict. This is essentially the 3 steps that are done iteratively and in a continual way, where the model is going to fit or train, right? So those 3 words there that I want you to relate to learning: fit, train, learn, right? The model is fitting or it's training or it's learning. Those are all 3 interchangeable words that you will see and hear in relation to AI. But then ultimately the goal is just to predict what comes next in a sentence, what comes next in a series of numbers, what comes next in a series of pixels. Okay. And that, my folks, or my friends, is essentially how AI works, right? Now, again, we'll go into details on each one of those in future lessons, but that's a very high level understanding of how AI works behind the scenes, what you don't see behind those prompts. All right, so let's start to wrap this up tonight. We're almost about at the top of the hour. And yes, my friends, AI After Dark is starting to come to a close. It's last call. But let's talk about some of the use cases we'll be going over here on the channel in future lessons to come. The first one is AI agents. And this one is, of course, super hot right now. You hear agents all around. We're going to learn what these personal assistants can do for us. We're going to develop some, right? I'm going to show you ways how to do it without using programming, no code, low code options. But then I'm also going to show you how to do it using code. So yes, I am going to teach you how to program. We're going to see how AI is used in finance. And the reason we're using finance is because it's one of the more easy or one of the low-hanging fruits for application of AI, just because of all of the financial data that is electronic in nature and how easy it is to make decisions. Well, I won't say easy, but how much that particular domain is ripe for AI introduction. And again, AI has been used in financial institutions for many years, so it just makes sense to show and discuss how AI is being used in finance. Okay. We're also going to learn a little bit about healthcare in AI, whether that's drug research or, I don't know if you guys have been watching the news lately, but reproductive, right? A company in China has recently come up with a way to have and carry children, baby fetuses, in an AI or robotic womb. Now, this is coming out of China, so we don't know how much of it is correct. But I will tell you this, AI in China, well, just China in general, from a technological standpoint, is far more advanced than we are here in the West. And that's no shade to the West. But when we hear things coming out of China, that's what's next, all right? We'll also talk about entertainment and content creation and how to use AI in that field, just because I think that this is going to be an opportunity for those of us that want to be more creative and get into the space. How can we do that with AI? And I want to take a moment to speak directly to those that are already in the space, my entertainers, my creatives, and creators. I empathize with you. I understand your concerns. And I don't think it's fair what has been done to you guys, what is being done to you all. You're not being accredited for your work. You're not being compensated either. And even if you are, it's not nearly worth what you put into it. So I do empathize with what you're dealing with and why you may resist AI. I do. I truly do. But I hope that you maybe get some information from me that helps you become a better creator using AI. Not all that different from a photographer going from film to digital. Okay? I think that AI is an opportunity for you to get your work and your artistic expression out in more economical ways and in ways that are more personable to you without so much stress and strife. And let's be quite honest, predatory contracts and systems. Okay. So I want to show you guys how to do that. And I also want to learn myself how to use AI in a more creative way, because that's also something that I want to be better at as a technologist with a lot of technical experience. I want to learn how to be more creative and how to spread my message and have a greater impact using these new tools. So I'm trying to have a very positive and optimistic viewpoint on it. But that does not go without saying I empathize with your resistance. I do. And so I'm hoping that I can help you too. Okay. Now, finally, we will eventually get to the point where we discuss AI and self-driving vehicles and robotics. This is where we make the leap from AI in a software world, just applications on our phones, on our laptops, to now AI going into the physical AI realm. And I believe that that is the next frontier. I believe that's what's coming next. That's our next breakthrough. We will have devices, products, physical vehicles, and other types where AI is in our physical world with us, not just in the electronic or the digital or the metaverse, right? We will be sitting, walking, riding or driving, working beside these physical devices that have AI embedded in them. And for those that are already working in the blue collar labor force, you already know this with robotic arms. If you're at an Amazon factory or warehouse, you know about this. Car manufacturing, you've already been using AI with robotics. But I think this is going to become widespread with everyone. And so we're going to talk a bit about that on my channel as well. All right. So as we close out tonight, I want you to do some homework for me. We're going to have some calls to action at the end of every class, every lesson we have. But I want you to think about the impact of AI on your life. I want you to put in the chat, put down in the comments below, how is AI already impacting your life? What are some of the fears you have with AI impacting your life? And not just these 4 categories that I have on the screen here: work, life, creativity, and decisions. I want you to think about what other areas AI could potentially impact your life or is already impacting you, whether directly or indirectly, positively or negatively. So let's take away from tonight's lesson a little homework assignment, a thought experiment, where we really think about how AI is impacting us. And next class, I want you all to bring those to me or already have them in the comments below and let me know how it's impacting you. And it's okay if you're upset. If you want to rage, that's fine. You can use my platform to do that. But that's your homework for next class, okay? So we're going to wrap things up now. This has been, again, a great opportunity to present to you all. Thank you so much for coming to AI After Dark. We'll continue to do these, and we will progressively build on our understanding and our awareness about AI. Now, don't worry, we're going to get keys on the keyboard and we're going to start actually building and developing systems. But again, this is for beginners. This is starting at the basics, and we're going to slowly crawl our way into walking, eventually into flying. But I just want to tell you, thank you for giving me your time, give me your attention. And if you know anybody that wants to learn AI or that is afraid of AI, is just not sure what AI is, share this channel with them. Share this video with them. And by all means, if you can think of ways I can do this better, please let me know. Again, there's no negative criticism or feedback. It's all positive to me. It's all good data. So let me know how I can help you better in the classes to come. And until next time, make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Make sure you're always learning. Find a way to help somebody. Take something that you learned tonight and teach it to someone else. I'm going to add that to your homework assignment as well. Each one teach one. Because I need you guys' help. I need all of your help. And we're only as good as we are in a group, in a collective, okay? Not individually. All right. So until our next installment, this is Norm signing off. Again, thank you guys for the time tonight. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe this weekend. And I'll see you soon.